Let's try this again, shall we? Alright, what do we have going on today? The Wagner Group attempts a massive coup in Russia, although, given the fact that it's not an unarmed insurrection full of grannies who are just milling about a capital and not knowing what to do, this is still not as dangerous as January 6th, but we will be talking about what happened, how this started, where this goes, and what we do from this, and what this means both for the US and the Ukraine as we go forward with what happened in Russia. In other news, a prosecutor has reportedly told 6 witnesses that he was not permitted to charge Hunter Biden any further than what he was offered to do. So we'll be talking about that. And Kevin McCarthy has actually offered up articles of impeachment over this, not Marjorie Taylor Greene. So we'll go over that and what's happening there and what goes on with that. Eileen Cannon hits the hot seat based on the fact that she will not allow Jack Smith to enter 85 sealed witnesses without the defense having a chance to do research on them and or find out what it is that their testimony is going to be. So we'll go over some of that and where that goes and what happens there. And legislators in Montana receive suspicious packages with white powder, and CNN and the local affiliate won't tell you what party they're from. It is going to be all of this and more. I was the one flying the balloons. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. When we set that back to the audio platform, I'll have to remember to cut that little section out there at the beginning. Because, it doesn't want to change the scene. And I remember, because I did take the microphone, I set the microphone up while I was setting up and hitting the record button for the audio platform, but for whatever reason, when I turned around and it was, when I pulled the webcam scene back up, my microphone was gone again. I don't know why it does that. So I'm going to be watching close when we go back into the news scene again and see what's happening there. Plus, we did have a little bit of an internet crash at the beginning because, well, Spectrum. But we're here, we're back up, and I was able to get the cold open in. So, with the exception of me saying this now, nobody in the audio platform is going to know that we screwed up for the first couple of minutes in the first cold open of this. But with that, we have got a lot to go over here over on Contemporary. So, we're going to strap in. I mean, the Wagner Group, that was just breaking while we were on Friday, so we'll be talking a bit about that, and I mean, that appeared to be over as fast as it was started, so we'll be talking about that. Biden is actually coming out and saying, hey man, we didn't know anything about that, we didn't do anything about it, but the intelligence agencies say that they actually did, so we'll be going over some of that. McCarthy, of course, floating the articles of impeachment above and beyond what the Mogwai is the biggest fan of, Marjorie Taylor Greene doing so we'll be talking about that. But we do have something from the impeachment senator, the impeachment representative. She's not in the Senate, thank God. And the Trump news coming up again. Plus, I do have a little article that's basically really funny. I've got a video and an article where Kinzinger basically admits that the Nazis going around to these Trump and DeSantis rallies are feds. I don't know, you be the judge. We'll get to that down towards the bottom of the show, but it's going to be all of this and more over on Contemporary. Before we get started, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys, tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior, The No Gimmicks Podcast, Silent Caster, and Clown World Chronicles with Papa Palpatine. Go check out all that great programming on all the platforms that they are available on. Also go check us out on YouTube, DLive, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, Rumble, and now Kick. We're on Trovo too, but number one, that's going to be another one where they're just... I'm going to cut the platform because we're not getting any return off of it. So Trovo is probably going to be up. You can go check us out over there. And check us out on all the platforms as we attempt to bring you a better news experience from the common man for the common man. That is right. Stop getting your news from people who hate you and wear suits that cost more than your houses. Get your news and commentary and culture from people who are just like you. And let's get down into it. Let's get started. After our glitch-riddled beginning, we'll get down into the news. Change up the scene here, and then we'll change up this scene, get the live chat up here so I can see what you guys are doing and saying. Remember, by the way, at the end of the show we will be doing an extended live chat segment, so if I don't get to your live chats immediately in the show, fear not. At the bottom of the show we'll go through that, we'll be talking about that. We'll see how much I laugh throughout the rest of this too. And yes, this will be on all platforms. We'll go through who's checking us out over on Instagram, over on Rumble, and we will do the main chat, which does include the Kick chat, by the way. That actually automatically comes back in there, so we will see what's happening with that. Tell your friends, get some people in here, let's have some fun. Let's talk about what's going on in the news and in the culture, and let's get started with the Dow, which played jump rope basically throughout the day today. It actually started flat. It didn't take a really big spike or really big drop until a few minutes into trading on the morning, where it did spike upwards before sinking itself back downwards. The Dow was mainly, for the most part, I would call this trading flat on the day today, with the futures starting to rise a little bit as we see what's happening with that. 12.72 points was the drop on the day today. That is down 0.038% on the day, so I actually am expecting to see the NASDAQ and or the S&P be on the rise. We'll see what happens when we read from IBD. Looking at your Bitcoin is at $30,230 and 20 US cents. On the day, that's actually down $250 US even, or 0.82%, bringing us out on the 5-day to see what happened over the weekend. It does seem like there was a great big spike on Friday before it just kind of mellowed itself back down. It's been slowly rising and dropping like a bouncing ball, rolling and rolling and rolling to bring us down to that 30,000 mark. Now on the 5-day, that's actually up, but over the weekend, it's down significantly. So that is what we see coming off of your Bitcoin. Your gas prices in the Madison area are showing signs of reprieve again. Our 336 average has dropped to 330 in some places, and one outlier on the east side is showing 320 in the Madison area. Remember, these gas prices may not reflect your local gas prices, but the pattern most likely will reflect a pattern based on what your gas taxes are, on where the changes are throughout the day. So go check your local listings and see what your gas prices are at. 336 remains the average on the west side of Madison, but it does look like it might be coming down as we go into the 4th of July weekend, which would be awesome because I plan to be driving on that weekend. All right, let's grab one from Investors Business Daily, see what's happening there. Well, we have an advertisement I can't close, I guess. That's weird. Can I just click out of it? Nope. Get a refresh on this here. All right, from IBD. Dow Futures stock market pullback continues. What do we do now? Nvidia and Tesla sell off. This is from Scott Latonin. Dow Futures were little changed ahead of Tuesday's market open as the major indices continued to pull back on Monday. Nvidia and Tesla sold off sharply on Monday. On Monday, the Dow inched lower while the S&P lost 0.45. The tech-heavy NASDAQ declined 1.2. Okay, I was wrong. I was actually in the absolute opposite direction. Given what we saw from the Dow, I expected to see a rise in at least one of those, but no, they lost even more. Ending at day lows. On the upside, the small cap Russell edged higher. Tech titan Nvidia sold off 3.7% on Monday, closing at its lowest level since June 12th. EV giant Tesla skidded 6.1% after another downgrade, this one from Goldman Sachs. Later this week, Dow stocks Nike and Walgreens will report their quarterly results. Nike earnings are out Thursday, while Walgreens will report on Tuesday. Dow tech giants Apple and Microsoft dropped 0.8% and 1.9% respectively in today's market action. Chipotle, Floor & Decor, Lam Research, MongoDB, as well as Dow stocks Merck, JP Morgan, and Salesforce are among the best stocks to buy or watch in the stock market uptrend. Tesla is an IBD leaderboard stock, Floor & Decor is an IBD swing trader stock, while MongoDB is featured in this week's Stocks Nearby Zone column. Ahead of Tuesday's bell, the Dow futures, along with the S&P and the Nasdaq, were little change versus fair value. On Monday, the 10-year yield ticked lower to 3.71%. Oil prices rather bounced modestly on Monday, rebounding off last week's losses, but remained near their recent lows. West Texas Intermediate futures rose almost 1% to around $69.50 a barrel. So that is what we see coming off the markets for the day. Our layoffs report comes from KPMG, which I've actually never heard of. But we'll be reading from Fox Business to talk about that. KPMG cutting 5% of its U.S. workforce. From Joe Toppy. KPMG will reportedly shed 5% of its U.S. employees amid economic headwinds and historic low attrition, a spokesperson for the accounting firm said on Monday. At the end of its last fiscal year, on September 30th, the company employed more than 39,000 employees around the U.S. That's a lot of people to lose. Now, 5% doesn't seem like it's a lot, but let's have a look here. 39 times 0.05. That means, as we do the math over here, I don't know why I had to do the math over here on that one, but like typically I'll do the research over on that one just so you can't see browser history, but I'll do the math over there for whatever reason. But that's another 2,000 jobs gone based on last fiscal year. 1,950 to be precise on that. So, but don't worry, this is fine. Everything is fine. We don't have to worry about what's going on with the economy or anything like that. We do not take this decision lightly, however, we believe it's best in the long-term interest of our firm and will position us for continued success in the future, KPMG said in an emailed statement. KPMG is a part of a series of companies making staff reductions ahead of potential economic downturn later in 2023. Last week, Ford reported preparing for another round of layoffs. We reported on that last week. Earlier this year, the automaker announced it was beginning a 3,800-person reduction in its European workforce. Ernst & Young's U.S. division let go of 5% of its staff, while Deloitte also reported job cuts the same month. Gap reduced 1,800 positions. Disney shed 7,000 employees in its second round of layoffs, and 3M let go of 6,000 workers in its second round of job cuts. In March, Meta's third round of cuts kicked in as 1,000 positions were eliminated, with job cuts across the board at 15% in that same month. But don't worry, this is fine. Everything is fine. Strongest economy in history, right there. Tell that to the people who are looking and seeing what happens and how Christmas is going to look this year. So that's what we see for that. So looking at the live chat here, the Mogwai saying crashing more than OceanGate stock prices. I would so this is Spectrum's internet quality. No, this was an accidental hit, or I don't know what causes it to do that. I'm probably going to kick Streamlabs at some point here in the very near future, just because I can't keep doing this. And it always seems to happen in the scene change, because I've done cold opens and talked to the audience before, and then switch to the new scene and it goes mute. This is the first time it's done it coming off of the starting soon card into the cold open card. Yeah. Mogwai says, I can't hear you. Awesome music, though. I love Mondays. Will the stream work or not? Let's see. Rachel Maddow hates me. I saw under 3 in South Carolina. I was shocked. Oh, under $3. Interesting. It's probably better down south then. That would actually be nice. We'll see. We'll see what happens there. We're going to go right into the news today, talking about basically what we finished off talking about because of Twitter trending on Friday. And honestly, I might have missed this if we didn't do Twitter trending on Friday. I'm going to come right off and say this. I had an insomnia night on Friday night into Saturday, and then I had to work on Saturday morning, although I would have seen it on the Twitter buzz while I was trying to force myself to stay awake on Saturday, which was rough, by the way. When you try to work on a day that's normally slow, when you've only had 2 hours of sleep, it is not a good thing, I can tell you that right off the bat. But what we saw while we were looking at Twitter trending on Friday night was Mario Nafal, and this tweet is left over from Friday night, by the way. Latest, Wagner attempts a coup in Russia. Everything started when Yevgeny Prigozhin, the head of the Russian mercenary group Wagner, accused Russia of bombing his military sites in Ukraine. Now, we've talked about Prigozhin a little bits on and off throughout all the Ukrainian coverage. But there has never been enough conversation about who this man is for so many people to be experts in him the way that they were come Saturday morning. And there were a lot of Prigozhin experts Saturday morning. None of them are right, but there were a lot of experts. Despite the Russian Defense Ministry's claim that there was no truth to his allegation, Prigozhin stated that 25,000 mercenaries would participate in a military coup organized by him. Igor Girkin, a former member of the Russian Federal Security Service, confirmed that the military coup attempt had begun, and now we know he wasn't lying. Wagner has confirmed that they have indeed initiated their coup. Here's everything that we know so far, which this is a lengthy tweet thread. And there is some video to go with it, which is what we watched. We didn't read the, I'm sorry, this isn't a thread. We didn't read the lengthy tweet at the time because I made the correct assumption we'd be talking about this today. Everything we know so far reports the Federal Security Force has allowed Wagner to enter Russian city of Rostov without any resistance. This just came in and would mean the FSB is part of the coup, or they're trying to save face after Wagner was able to enter without resistance. Prigozhin just claimed the Russian Chief of General Staff, Gerasimov, gave the command to open fire from aircraft on Wagner. Columns mixed with civilian vehicles, the pilots refused to follow the order. Roadblocks have been established by the FSB and the SOBR on the Moscow-Voronezh-Rostov on the Don Highway. Wagner has accused any Russian military personnel who don't assist them in cleansing campaign of collaborating with the Ukrainians and stated that they will be dealt with accordingly. That is going to be important when we talk about our Twitter experts on this. Multiple Russian military generals have made videos urging Wagner not to proceed with this attack. The Oman and SOBR units of the Russian Guard are on high alert, and security in Moscow has been significantly intensified. Allegedly, a clash has occurred between Wagner and units of the Rosgvardia on the Rostov-Moscow highway near Kozachi Lahari. It is estimated that only 25% of Russians currently have access to the internet. That's just a Tuesday, dude. That has absolutely nothing to do with what was going on over there. Armed vehicles have filled the streets of Rostov, and dozens of aircraft filled with Russian special forces are flying to the region. According to Russia's defense ministry, Ukraine has taken advantage of Prigozhin's provocation to destabilize the situation and is attacking Russia's forces along the flanks. Russia's Ministry of Defense has repeatedly asked Wagner to stand down. Russian media has reported that there is a panic in the Kremlin, no one can reach Putin, and that the current mood among St. Petersburg elites is when choosing between Putin and Prigozhin, Prigozhin is now the preferred choice, they support him. Prigozhin says he and his men are ready to go all the way, because apparently this is a 1980s prom night, and that he and his men will destroy anyone who stands in their way. Press Secretary Dmitry Peskov, Putin receives reports 24/7 about the measures taken related to the attempt of an armed rebellion. The situation is insane and bound to have major consequences. Should this coup succeed without support from the Kremlin, this will not succeed. We have received reports of various members of the Russian military that are turning against the Kremlin. We're standing by and watching the developments. We have also heard that Wagner was able to enter the Russian city of Rostov with no resistance. Rostov's main city is home to the headquarters of the Russian Southern Military District and the general headquarters for the Russian military operations in Ukraine. I do not think this will succeed, and I think this is Prigozhin's desperate response after learning of his potential arrest. Prigozhin has been likely planning this for a long time, smuggling Russian weapons to his forces and building alliances from within the Kremlin. There's an ongoing investigation by the Ministry of Defense into these allegations, and we've heard reports, This guy is starting to misspell things, which, just trying to read through, now they're, instead of weave, it's weir on the page, and then you just say that. And we've heard reports that an assassination attempt against Prigozhin took place, likely leading to this response. What happens next? We're discussing this in the space, and it's too early to speculate, but any instability is not good news. Anything is possible now. Advertising for a space with a video of tanks coming into Rostov. And thankfully, no fighting was being recorded at the time, or at least nothing that was uploaded with this video. This was from 6:42 p.m. on June 23rd, so Friday night. So again, this was breaking like right as we were doing Contemporaries. We were talking about, I don't even remember what we were talking about anymore at that point, but right as we were talking about whatever we were starting the show with, this was going on, this was going down. Now, a lot has changed over the weekend, including the fact that this was pretty much over before it got started. I think by Saturday morning local time, this was already over. So let's look at... There isn't a lot of stuff out there about the fact that it had got stopped. But a lot of stuff about them. But the latest that we have from CNBC, Putin says Russia would have crushed rebellion, vows justice for mutiny organizers. This is from Christina Wilkie. Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Monday the organizers of an armed mutiny over the weekend will be brought to justice, and that his military would have put the rebellion down anyway. The Russian president's comments were his first since hundreds of Wagner Group mercenaries, led by Yevgeny Prigozhin, marched on Moscow over the weekend in what appeared to be an armed rebellion against Russia's military leadership. This is criminal activity which is aimed at weakening country. This was colossal threat, Putin said in a televised address to the nation. In exchange for his turning back, a criminal case against Prigozhin was dropped, and he was permitted to leave Russia for Belarus. We'll talk more about that later. As of Monday, Prigozhin was believed to be staying at a hotel in Minsk that did not have any windows, according to Senator Mark Warner, chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Now, I know the answer already, because this is a Soviet-era state, where there were probably a lot of assassination attempts. But under any normal circumstance other than being a part of the former Soviet Union, would you just hear windowless hotel room and just think, yes, everything's normal, everything's fine? The mutiny took the world by surprise and catapulted a taboo question to center stage across Russia. Whether Putin's grip on power might not be as ironclad internally as it looks from the outside. That is, even when I first heard about this, that was not a question on my mind. The only way that I think that his grip on absolute power over there is going to be shaken, because there are a lot of people that still like him over there, is if they'd actually succeeded and they'd have killed him. And by the way, do I think that Prigozhin is actually going to live out the rest of his days in Belarus? No. He's either going to seek asylum somewhere in the West and wind up killed anyway, or somebody's going to go into Belarus and kill him. This is not somebody who's going to be permitted to live. Let's see. After they took control of the southern city of Rostov on Saturday, Wagner fighters and hundreds of armored vehicles came within 200 miles of Moscow before Prigozhin ordered them to turn back. In his speech on Monday, Putin thanked those involved in the mutiny, who made the only right decision. They did not go to fratricidal bloodshed. They stopped at last line. He then said that Wagner Group would be permitted to join the Russian army, to leave the country for neighboring Belarus as Prigozhin did, where they will die. By the way, in the Russian military, they will die too. Or simply return to family and friends. Putin's decision to grant unilateral clemency to the Wagner mercenaries seemed out of character to some Russian scholars. Why? He's got cannon fodder now to throw at the Ukrainians. And from the looks of it, highly skilled cannon fodder, but still, these guys are going straight to the front line. Even if they return to their family and friends. These guys will disappear in the middle. The ones that don't go to the military will disappear in the middle of the night. This is Russia under a KGB leader from the Soviet era. The ones who said, okay, I've had enough of the military, I'm going to return to my family and friends. Their family and friends are going to wake up one morning. They will be gone. And they will be at the very front lines of Ukraine. Let's see. Coming as it did from an autocratic ruler who regularly jails civilians for publicly criticizing his admin. Prigozhin has said that his goal was never to seize political control of the Kremlin and overthrow Putin, but rather to protest a planned dissolution of his Wagner Group, a private army. So, a lot to unpack here. My big question, and one that I don't think gets answered in this, is why he turned back. And I don't know if the world is ever going to know this. And again, the big thing is when he gets offed, if he does get offed in the West somewhere, which I would say he's probably got about a 50-50 shot at, if he is smart enough to try to escape to the West anyway. When he gets offed in the West, will he spill the secrets and give a tell-all before they off him? And by the way, his group actually did get dissolved anyway. From the Associated Press, Russian mercenary group revolt against Moscow fizzles but exposes vulnerabilities. No author given. The greatest challenge to Russian President Vladimir Putin in his more than 2 decades in a power fizzled out over the rebellious mercenary commander who ordered his troops to march on Moscow abruptly reached a deal with the Kremlin to go into exile and sounded the retreat. The brief revolt, though, exposed vulnerabilities among Russian government forces, with Wagner Group soldiers under the command of Yevgeny Prigozhin able to move unimpeded into the Russian city of Rostov-on-Don and advance hundreds of kilometers towards Moscow. The Russian military scrambled to defend Russia's capital. Under the deal announced on Saturday by Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, Prigozhin will go to neighboring Belarus, which has supported Russia's invasion of the Ukraine. Charges against him of mounting an armed rebellion will be dropped. The government also said it would not prosecute Wagner fighters who took part, while those who did not join were to be offered contracts with the defense ministry. Prigozhin ordered his troops back to their field camps in Ukraine, where they have been fighting alongside Russian regular soldiers. Putin had vowed earlier to punish those behind the armed uprising, led by his one-time protege. In a televised speech to the nation, he called the rebellion a betrayal and treason. In allowing Prigozhin and his forces to go free, Peskov said Putin's highest goal was to avoid bloodshed and internal confrontations with unpredictable results. Some observers say Putin's strongman image has taken a hit. Putin has been diminished for all time by this affair, former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine John Herbst said on CNN. This is propaganda, by the way. From this point forward, if this is how they're going to start, this is going to be propaganda. Moscow had braced for the arrival of the Wagner forces by erecting checkpoints with armored vehicles and troops on the city's southern edge. About 3,000 Chechen soldiers were pulled from fighting in Ukraine and rushed there early Saturday. State television in Chechnya reported Russian troops armed with machine guns put up checkpoints in Moscow's southern outskirts. Crews dug up sections of highways to slow the march. Wagner troops advanced just 200 kilometers from Moscow, according to Prigozhin. But after the deal was struck, Prigozhin announced that he had decided to retreat to avoid shedding Russian blood. Which is interesting because he actually did not shed any Russian blood on the first attempt through. Let's just get a map up here. I wanna look and see where they're coming from. So this is Rostov-on-Don. Our friends in the LP tell us that we can't talk about any place unless we can point to it on the map, because otherwise it's not our business. So let's have a look where this is on the map. Now, interestingly enough, there's a city in Russia called Azov, which is the same name as the troops over in Ukraine. But here is Rostov-on-Don. I'm a little curious because these people are supposed to be in camps in this area here. But if they're going to march on Moscow, again, this doesn't seem like this is the most direct route. With them having started from basically here. Now, the fact that this is a heavily militarized area, and as they had said, the site of the Southern Ministry of the Military, it may have been strategic to try to take down one of the wings of the military, which would have been coming up behind them as they go. But otherwise, again, like, no matter where you go, if you're starting from the Ukraine, which is, again, from what they tell me, is where they were starting from, it seems way out of the way to go back down to Rostov-on-Don before you turn back around and head to Moscow. And with this measurement being about 200 miles, tells me they got to about here before they looked back and said, you know what, fuck this. It's not worth it. Which does raise some more questions, definitely. Under the deal announced Saturday by Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, Prigozhin will go into neighboring Belarus, which has supported Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Charges against him mounting and an armed rebellion will be dropped. The government also said it would not prosecute Wagner fighters who took part. We read this already. Yeah, we got down all here. Congressional leaders were briefed on the Wagner buildup earlier last week. A person familiar with the matter said the person was not authorized to speak publicly and spoke to the Associated Press on the condition of anonymity. Unnamed sources. Where's Mogwai's cat? Early Saturday, Prigozhin's private army appeared to control the military headquarters on Rostov-on-Don, a city 660 miles south of Moscow, which runs Russian operations in Ukraine, Britain's defense ministry said. Russian media reported that several helicopters and a military communications plane were downed by Wagner groups. Russia's defense ministry has not commented. After the agreement de-escalated tensions, video from Rostov-on-Don posted on Russian messaging app channels showed people cheering Wagner troops as they departed. Prigozhin was riding in an SUV followed by a large truck, and people greeted him and some ran to shake his hand. The regional governor later said that all the troops had left the city. Wagner troops and equipment were also in Lipetsk province, about 360 kilometers south of Moscow. Sergei Sobyanin, the mayor of Moscow, declared Monday a non-working day for most residents as part of their heightened security, a measure that remained in effect after the retreat. Ukrainians hoped that Russian infighting would create opportunities for their army to take back territory seized by Russian forces. Oh yeah. Zelensky has had, right now, the most dangerous place in the world to be is between Volodymyr Zelensky and a camera. Because if he sees that little red light flash on, he is running for that camera to come out and say, "Oh yes, look at this! This was great victory for Ukraine, and Russia is in disarray. We take Russia. We now take Moscow. All of Russia will now be Ukraine. Slava Ukrainian." All the other bullshit propaganda he's been spewing. These events will have been of great comfort for the Ukrainian government and the military, said Ben Berry, a senior fellow for land warfare at the International Institute of Strategic Studies. He said that even with the deal, Putin's position has probably been weakened. Why? Volodymyr Zelensky said late on Saturday, shortly before Prigozhin announced his retreat, that the march exposed weakness in the Kremlin and showed all Russian bandits, mercenaries, oligarchs that it is easy to capture Russian cities and probably arsenals. Wagner troops have played a crucial role in the Ukraine war, capturing the eastern city of Bakhmut, an area where the bloodiest and longest battles have taken place. But Prigozhin has increasingly criticized the military brass, accusing it of incompetence and of starving his troops of munitions. The 62-year-old Prigozhin, a former convict, has a long-standing tie to Putin and won lucrative Kremlin catering contracts that earned him the nickname Putin's chef. He and a dozen other Russian nationals were charged with, in the United States with operating a covert social media campaign aimed at fomenting discord ahead of the... Oh, jeez. Oh, goodness. I need to pre-read some of this. Operating a covert social media campaign aimed at fomenting discord ahead of Trump's 2016 presidential victory. Wagner has sent military contractors to Libya, Syria, several African countries, and eventually the Ukraine. So, a lot of information going on here. Still no reason why they turned back. From Fox News, Wagner Group leader resurfaces for first time since rebellion against Russian leadership. From Anders Hagström, Yevgeny Prigozhin resurfaced for the first time since launching a brief rebellion against Vladimir Putin on Monday, posting an 11-minute voice recording to social media. The march toward Moscow was intended to be a protest against the prosecution of the war in Ukraine, and not aimed at regime change in Russia. That's not what they were saying on Friday night. Prigozhin said, according to a Reuters translation. "We started march due to injustice. We show no aggression, but we were hit by missiles and helicopters. This was trigger, the warlord said in the recording. We showed a masterclass on how February 24th, 2022 had to look. We turned around to avoid spilling blood of Russian soldiers. We regret it had to hit Russian aviation, he added. Prigozhin shocked the world this weekend when he turned his private military group against Russian forces, taking control of Russian military bases and beginning the march. The warlord relented on Saturday after Belarus held negotiations between the two sides. The Kremlin said it made the deal in which the mercenary chief will move to Belarus, and he and his soldiers will receive amnesty. So, he's dead. Or he will be, very shortly. Prigozhin's statement offered no clues to his current whereabouts, and it's not clear whether he has traveled to Belarus. Oh, Putin knows. Some of the aftermath of this. From CNN Business, oil and natural gas prices rise after weekend turmoil in Russia. From Laura He and Mark Thompson. Oil and natural gas prices climbed on Monday while wheat prices briefly spiked higher as investors reacted to the weekend's brief and chaotic insurrection in Russia. Remember, this is still not as dangerous as a group of 36 tourists standing in the rotunda looking around wondering, what do we do? Markets were largely focused on whether the turmoil in Moscow could disrupt global commodity supplies. Russia is the world's second biggest exporter of oil and the world's biggest exporter of wheat. U.S. crude oil futures briefly climbed 1.3% before trading up 0.8%. By 12:15 p.m. Eastern Time, Brent crude, the international benchmark, gained 0.7%. Both contracts lost nearly 4% last week. Given that the short-lived event this weekend in Russia appears to have ended, we do not expect to see a significant increase in oil prices, analysts at Rystad Energy wrote in a note, which means that the prices that we've been seeing here are probably not going to turn back just yet. We do, however, believe that the geopolitical risk amid internal instability in Russia has increased. As such, we are likely to see a marginal uptick in oil prices in the coming days if the situation does not deteriorate further. Benchmark prices for European natural gas were up 10% from Friday's close at €39 per megawatt hour. Prices have shot up over the past few weeks, mostly because of outages at some Norwegian gas plants. News that a Dutch gas field will close permanently in October have also boosted prices. So, we're in a market that does not need any other stress. Luckily and thankfully, the market that we have here is at least somewhat stable. Not horribly stable, but somewhat stable. We will definitely somewhat watch this and see what's happening there. We will definitely somewhat watch this and see what's happening there. We will definitely somewhat watch this and see what's happening there. I don't know how the hell that happened. I don't know, I went to go check to kick to see if anybody had jumped over there, and for whatever reason, when it started playing, the volume popped up. And then it started into a circular loop in and of itself. On-air production. You know what? I am going to save that because that is something I want to talk about tomorrow. Because we do have to keep paying attention to what's happening in presidential politics. A little bit more propaganda from the Associated Press. With Russia revolt over, mercenaries' future and direction of Ukraine war remains uncertain. No author given. The rebellious mercenary soldiers who briefly took over a Russian military headquarters on an ominous march toward Moscow were gone Sunday, but the short-lived revolt has weakened Vladimir Putin just as his forces are facing a fierce counteroffensive in Ukraine. You guys need to not keep telling yourselves this, by the way. I know how much you'd like to believe it, but I don't believe it. And I think this is a dangerous line of thinking that you're trying to put yourselves into, because Putin man bad. Under terms of the agreement that ended the crisis, Yevgeny Prigozhin, who led his Wagner troops to the failed uprising, will go into exile in Belarus but will not face prosecution. Anthony Blinken described the weekend's events as extraordinary, recalling that 16 months ago Putin appeared poised to seize the capital of Ukraine, and now he has to defend Moscow from forces led by his one-time protege. I think we've seen more cracks emerge in the Russian facade, Blinken said on NBC's Meet the Depressed. It is too soon to tell exactly where they go and when they get there, but certainly we have all sorts of new questions that Putin is going to have to address in the weeks and months ahead. It was not yet clear what fissures opened by the 24-hour rebellion would mean for the war in Ukraine, but it resulted in some of the best forces fighting for Russia being pulled from the battlefield. The Wagner troops, who had shown their effectiveness in scoring the Kremlin-only land victory in months in Bakhmut, and Chechen soldiers sent to stop them on the approach to Moscow. The Wagner forces, largely unopposed rapid advance, also exposed vulnerabilities in the Russian security and military forces. The mercenary soldiers were reported to have downed several helicopters and a military communications plane. The Defense Ministry has not commented. This is not a road that you need to go down if you are going to try to stand against Russia into the Ukraine. Of course, this is all about self-defense and nothing about offensive, but, again, we can all see Volodymyr Zelensky's tweets, and he has been another one, by the way, who has added the growing list of left-wing agitators who get spammed into the feeds of right-wingers. I have seen more from Volodymyr Zelensky, and I do not follow him, over the past 2 days on my Twitter feed than I have in total since this whole dumb fuck invasion began. From the Daily Wire. U.S. intel agencies knew of the Wagner Group mutiny plans, according to a report. Well, they've been talking about it and honestly, anybody who's been paying attention to the Ukrainian news knew about this too. I don't know if they quite knew that he was going to go running up to Moscow with stolen equipment from Rostov, but they knew that he was going to do something because he's been saying outright that he was going to do something. For at least 3 weeks he's been saying, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, do not tempt me, I will do it. This is from Ben Whitehead. American spy agencies knew last week that the Wagner Group in Russia was planning to take military action against Moscow, according to a report from the Washington Post, where democracy goes to die in darkness. It is unclear exactly when the agencies became aware of the plans, but senior officials in the Biden admin, the Pentagon, the Department of State, and the Congress have been briefed in the past 2 weeks on the plans for imminent military action against defense officials in Moscow, the Post reports. On Friday, the Wagner Group, headed by mercenary warlord Yevgeny Prigozhin, began its march toward Russian capital. There were enough signals to be able to tell the leadership that something was up, one of the American officials told the Post, so I think that they were ready for it. Are you saying that you put your fingers on the scale in favor of Russia, by the way? The source said the admin and the U.S. officials expressed high concern over what an uprising, instability, and potential change of leadership in Russia would mean for the global stability. Given the country's nuclear armed, there was a lot of questions along those lines, the official added. A potential civil war resulting from the uprising was the biggest concern for American officials, the Post reports. The reports of American intelligence having known the planned mutiny prior to the group's march in Moscow, in which they got within 120 miles, parallel intelligence being reported before Russia invaded Ukraine. warning of the invasion. In that case, the intelligence was declassified and reported in an attempt to deter Putin from going through with the February 2022 invasion. And this is where the tinfoil starts to come out, because there is a part of me, and I even said this on Friday, that looked at this and said, yeah, we funded this. We totally funded this. And there's good reason to look at that too. I mean, what haven't we funded when it comes to regime change? And how much has, by the way, our particular government been talking about regime change in Moscow? It's more than just a little bit, I can tell you that. They're quite eager and quite willing to do whatever it takes to get a regime change in that area. I'm actually surprised this is the first time. People have said, hey, somebody in Moscow, go up and shoot Putin. You'll be rewarded in the United States for doing so. Mind you, you're not going to get very far. Do I think this is the first ever attempt at this? Probably not. It's the first reported one. That's for sure. I mean, there's a puppet government in Ukraine right now because of a US-fueled coup. But Biden will tell you that he had nothing to do with it. Biden says U.S. and allies had nothing to do with Wagner rebellion in Russia. From Caitlin Yelek. President Biden said Monday that the U.S. and its allies made clear to Moscow that they were not involved in the Wagner mercenary group's brief uprising with Russia over the weekend, calling it part of a struggle within the Russian system. Yevgeny Prigozhin led an armed rebellion targeting Russia's military leaders, accusing them of botching the war in Ukraine, and also criticized Russian President Vladimir Putin. Wagner fighters appeared to seize control of the Russian military headquarters in Rostov-on-Don, which oversees the fighting in Ukraine, and were advancing towards Moscow when they were ordered back to their field camp when a truce brokered by Belarus was announced between Putin and Prigozhin. No, we totally had nothing to do with it. In bad take of the entire situation, Adam Kinzinger, former representative who sucked the dick of the Democrat Party and still had Illinois district him out, tweets out, "It appears the dream of Tucker Carlson, Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, Tulsi Gabbard, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, and so many more of a strong Russia are evaporating even faster. Tag your favorite Russia lover." Check didn't clear, call him back, says Mogwai. Haha. So, a little bit of background to this. And we've got one here. We got a couple here just talking a little bit about who the Wagner Group is. Which, and again, as soon as this broke out, every paid shill, and honestly every unpaid MAGA person on all of the internet became an expert in the Wagner Group in a moment. They all knew everything about them. But reading from CBS, what is the Wagner Group and who is Yevgeny Prigozhin? What to know about the Russian private military company, from Haley Ott and Carrie Breen. It's simple. Here's what to know about them. When they're attacking in the Ukraine, they are the most sadistic, evil Nazis on the face of the planet, even more than Donald Trump. When they are turning their guns on Moscow, they are the greatest military force in history, and how dare they back down? For years it was shrouded in secrecy, then infamy, and after 48 hours of confusion, claims of a rebellion in Russia. Questions about the notorious Wagner Group and the intentions of its leader, Yevgeny Prigozhin were still swirling on Monday. The group has been a key piece of Russia's strategy in Ukraine, with Wagner forces being used to hold cities like Bakhmut. Prigozhin has sharply criticized Russian military leaders for weeks, calling the top brass incompetent, even traitorous. Tensions between Russia's defense ministry and Wagner escalated dramatically Friday when Prigozhin alleged that Russian forces had attacked Wagner camps in the eastern Ukraine, killing dozens of his men. Later Friday, Prigozhin issued videotaped remarks that appeared to call for a rebellion against Russian military leadership, but he was characteristically vague in defining his plans. Prigozhin's Wagner forces left Ukraine and marched into Russia on Saturday, seizing control of Russian military headquarters in the southern region on Rostov-on-Don, which oversees the fighting in Ukraine. Vladimir Putin called the uprising a stab in the back in a televised address on Saturday morning. What is the Wagner Group? Wagner is actually a group of entities that operate as a private military company, or PMC. These PMCs can be hired by governments for security or combat services. They aren't uncommon. The U.S. has used private military companies during the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. However, there are differences between the commonly accepted definition of PMC and Russia's version of the companies. In NATO countries and Western countries, the main logic behind using private contractors when it comes to security and defense has been the flexibility of resources, says Andras Raks, a Russian expert at the German Council on Foreign Relations. However, on the Russian side, the logic has been different. Russia, from the beginning, perceived these companies as a way of exerting state power in a covert way. As Wagner's publicity has grown, so has that of its shadowy founder, Prigozhin. His work running a catering company with Kremlin contracts has earned him the nickname Putin's chef. But Prigozhin has long denied any connection to the group before finally admitting to being its founder last year. Prigozhin is a mastermind of social media and also is the mastermind of Prigozhin is the mastermind of media and also the mastermind of social media, said Katerina Stepanenko, a Russian analyst at the Institute for the Study of War, a public policy research based in D.C. While Putin and his propagandists have been dominating the Russian television and traditional outlets, Prigozhin is innovative because he had weaponized a network of military correspondents, and bloggers. They put military correspondents twice. Prigozhin is wanted by the FBI for conspiracy to defraud the U.S. The law enforcement agency is offering a $250,000 award for information leading to Prigozhin's arrest for allegedly overseeing the politically and electoral interference of the St. Petersburg, Florida-based internet research agency from 2014 to 2018. So maybe he's not going to be running away to the West. The agency, for which Prigozhin was the primary funder, worked to interfere with the 2016 U.S. presidential election, the FBI alleged, which I don't want to hear that because, remember, we're not allowed to hear from election deniers. Oh wait, this is 2016 election. Bring on the election deniers! And just a brief one here from the Associated Press to finish out this segment. The mercenary chief who urged an uprising against Russia's generals has long ties to Putin, from Ellen Nickmeyer. The millionaire mercenary chief, who long benefited from powerful patronage of President Putin, has moved into the global spotlight with a dramatic rebellion against Russia's military that challenged the authority of Putin himself. Yevgeny Prigozhin is the 62-year-old owner of Kremlin-allied Wagner Group, a private army of inmate recruits and other mercenaries that has fought some of its deadliest battles in Russia's invasion of Ukraine. On Friday, Prigozhin escalated months of scathing criticism of Russia's conduct of the war, calling for an armed uprising to oust the defense minister. Prigozhin and Putin go way back, with both born in Leningrad, which is now St. Petersburg. During the final years of the Soviet Union, Prigozhin served time in prison, 10 years, by his own admission, although he does not say what it was for. Afterward, he owned a hot dog stand and then a fancy restaurant that drew interest from Putin. In his first term, the Russian leader took then French President Jacques Chirac to dine at one of them. Vladimir saw how I built business out of kiosk. He saw I don't mind serving to esteemed guests because they were my guests, Prigozhin recalled in an interview published in 2011. His businesses expanded significantly to catering and providing school lunches in 2010. Putin helped Prigozhin's factory, which was built on generous loans by a state bank in Moscow alone. His company, Concord, won millions of dollars in contracts to provide meals at public schools. He also organized catering for Kremlin events in several years, earning him the nickname Putin's Chef, and has provided catering and utility services to Russian military. In 2017, opposition figure and corruption fighter Alexei Navalny accused Prigozhin's company of breaking antitrust laws by bidding for some $387 million of defense ministry contracts. So, the uprising, it started, and it was over. Just like that. And Prigozhin will disappear. His followers will now be on the front lines to soak up some of the bullets before the regular Russians go in. And we will probably never hear about this again. Even though for a few hours on Friday night, this was the biggest news in the world. Let's talk about the Hunter case. From the Daily Wire, a prosecutor reportedly told 6 witnesses he was not permitted to charge Hunter Biden. From Virginia Kruta over the Daily Wire. David Weiss wanted to bring charges against Joe Biden's son Hunter in D.C. IRS whistleblower Gary Shapley said on Friday, and when he was reportedly barred from doing so, he told 6 witnesses. Shapley testified on the matter last month, telling the Oversight Committee that Weiss revealed in an October 2022 meeting that he actually wanted to charge Hunter in 2 federal districts, but that he had been denied, and when Merrick Garland denied that had ever happened, Shapley publicly named the witnesses he said Weiss had told. He surprised us by telling us on the charges. I'm not the deciding official on whether charges are filed, Shapley told the committee. When he testified in late May, he then shocked us with the earth-shattering news that the Biden-appointed D.C. U.S. Attorney Matthew Graves would not allow him to charge in his district. Shapley explained that by not allowing Weiss to file charges in D.C., Graves had effectively barred Weiss from seeking charges on crimes allegedly committed during 2014 and 2015, including foreign income from Burisma and a scheme to evade income taxes through partnership with a convicted felon. The purposeful exclusion of the 2014 and 2015 years sanitized the most substantive criminal conduct and concealed material facts. It was at that same meeting in October 2022 that Weiss had said his request for special counsel authority had been denied. Shapley said he was instead told to go through the regular process, which would have once again pitted him against a Biden-appointed U.S. attorney. And I mean, we all knew right from the beginning that this was not going to be handled the same way as a criminal case against the rest of us. From the first time I heard that Hunter Biden was being investigated for tax fraud, I said, I bet you he doesn't get anything out of it. And for the most part, he didn't. A couple years probation, in which he's not going to abide by his probation agreements to begin with. And then he's going to go back and walk away. There's not going to be any prison time. Number one, how can you find a judge, again, who is unbiased enough to try the son of the current sitting president? Is it going to be a Biden appointee? Oh, well, he's got bias and he's just going to let him go. It's going to be a Trump appointee. Oh, he's just going to nail him to the wall just for political revenge. Where do you find that judge, that magical judge, that everybody's going to accept the outcome from? Fuck. With irrefutable evidence, people still believe that Kyle Rittenhouse is guilty as sin. But in doing so, McCarthy has taken a bold move, especially in the same chamber as Marjorie Taylor Greene. McCarthy floats potential impeachment inquiry into Garland over IRS whistleblower claims from Andrew Millman. Speaker McCarthy is floating the possibility that the House could open an impeachment inquiry into AG Garland over IRS whistleblower allegations that the DOJ leadership improperly interfered in the Hunter Biden probe, which Garland has denied. If it comes true, what the IRS whistleblower is saying, we're going to start impeachment inquiries on the Attorney General, McCarthy said Monday on Fox News. They're not going to go anywhere, but they're going to try. In a congressional testimony publicly released on Thursday, 2 IRS whistleblowers alleged to lawmakers that the president's son had been given preferential treatment by the DOJ. McCarthy said on Fox that IRS agents who came forward watched the abuse of power and how Hunter was treated. The allegation that the DOJ has been politicized against conservatives has been central to how House Republicans approach their congressional investigations, though there is scant evidence backing up most of their claims. Garland rejected those claims during a Friday news conference. Look, some have chosen to attack the integrity of the Justice Department by claiming that we do not treat like cases alike, Garland said. This constitutes an attack on an institution that is essential to American hegemony. Nothing could be further from the truth. Regarding the Hunter probe, whistleblowers made several explosive allegations, including that the IRS had recommended far more serious charges to the president's son, and that U.S. Attorney in Delaware David Weiss was blocked from bringing charges in other states. Garland said Friday that Weiss was permitted to continue his investigation and to make a decision to prosecute in any way which he wanted and in any district in which he wanted to. I don't know how it would be possible for anybody to block him from bringing a prosecution, given that he has the authority. Hunter will plead guilty to 2 tax misdemeanors and struck a deal with federal prosecutors to resolve a felony gun charge, the DOJ said on Tuesday in court filings, which, by the way, would have any of the rest of us in handcuffs and in prison. Joe, of course, sticks with his lie. Joe Biden doubles down on campaign claim that he never spoke with Hunter about business deals, from Tim Pierce. President Brandon appeared to stand by statements he made during the campaign when he claimed to have never spoken to his son about cutting business deals overseas. Jackie Heinrich engaged the president as he was walking by during an event at the White House on Monday. Let's watch. No, man. That guy, by the way, is really brave. To let Kamala Harris walk behind him like that? I mean, yes, there are cameras everywhere and everybody would see her do it, but I would not be walking in front of Kamala Harris. If I was that close to death's doorstep and she was the one waiting in the wings. That is not a thing that would happen. From the Blaze, reporters confront Garland with IRS whistleblower accusations that DOJ interfered in Hunter Biden probe. From Chris Enlow. A.G. Garland denied Friday accusations that the DOJ interfered in the Hunter Biden investigation. 2 IRS whistleblowers claimed that they were retaliated against after raising concerns about unusual interference from the DOJ in their investigation. On Thursday, the House Ways and Means Committee released transcripts of those whistleblowers. One of the explosive claims made by the IRS Criminal Supervisory Agency is that he was in a meeting with U.S. Attorney David Weiss last October in which Weiss said he was instructed not to bring criminal charges against Biden at the time. The timing of the claim supports a Washington Post report published in early October 2022 that claimed prosecutors believed that they had sufficient evidence to charge Biden. But Garland denied intervening in the investigation whatsoever. Look, as I said at the outset, Mr. Weiss, who was appointed by President Trump as the U.S. Attorney in Delaware and assigned this matter during the previous admin, would be permitted to continue his investigation and make a decision to prosecute any way that he wanted and in any district he wanted to, Garland said at a press conference. Mr. Weiss has since sent a letter to the House Judiciary Committee confirming that he had the authority.
Yeah, sure. On my other question, yesterday whistleblower testimony came out from an IRS supervisory special agent, current supervisory special agent, who insists he was in a meeting with U.S. Attorney David Weiss, who in October 2022 claimed in front of multiple people that he was told not to pursue the Hunter Biden investigation, not to bring charges in 2022. You said previously you've stayed out of the Hunter Biden investigation. It's been on David Weiss to figure that out. Can you once and for all shed a little light? There seems to be a little confusion on what's going on here.
I'd be happy to. As I said at the outset, Mr. Weiss, who was appointed by President Trump as the U.S. Attorney in Delaware and assigned this matter during the previous administration, would be permitted to continue his investigation and to make a decision to prosecute any way in which he wanted to and in any district in which he wanted to. Mr. Weiss has since sent a letter to the House Judiciary Committee confirming that he had that authority. I don't know how it would be possible for anybody to block him from bringing a prosecution, given that he has this authority.
He was never told no.
I'm saying he was given complete authority to make all decisions on his own.
Mr. Garland, just to follow up on that, one of the allegations that one of the IRS supervisors apparently made involved the fact that Mr. Weiss reportedly wanted to have the powers you've conferred on special counsels. Was that request ever made? And if so, why did you reject it?
It was not. The only person with authority to make somebody a special counsel or refuse to make somebody a special counsel is the Attorney General. Mr. Weiss never made that request to me.
Do you think that a special counsel?
I don't know if he's telling the truth. That's the thing. And again, this is a political operative. This is somebody that's known to be a political operative. So, I guess we'll see what happens with that and where that goes. Let's grab one from Fox. No video on this one, unfortunately, but it's archived because it's Fox. Token diversity hire dodges questions alluding to Hunter Biden's attendance at White House state dinner. From Bradford Betts. World's worst press secretary, token diversity hire, on Monday was asked to explain the admin's policy on family members attending state dinners. The question seemed to allude to the president's son, Hunter, who was listed among the guests invited to a White House state dinner last week, just 2 days after the 53-year-old's agreement to plead guilty to 2 misdemeanor counts of willful failure to pay federal income tax became public. The reporter acknowledged that it was not unusual for presidents to invite family members to White House functions, but questioned whether any additional guardrails were put in place given the circumstances. I'm curious, though, in light of some of the recent legal controversy, if the president's communicated to members of his family not to conduct business on White House grounds. Can you tell us about any kinds of guardrails that are up, the reporter asked. Diversity Hire refused to engage the question on account of it being tied to a Department of Justice investigation. Look, we've laid out very early in this administration when it comes to ethics, when it comes to how we move about and how we respect clearly The government ethics here in this admin has been incredibly transparent, and that has put in place some very strict rules. I can speak on how the president moved forward in making sure that the people who work for him and himself are held to a strict course of action, but I'm not going to speak to anything that's related to the case. Thank you. Next question. And there are legitimate concerns about this that people need to know, not necessarily about how the DOJ is handling it, but how the White House is handling it. This is the president's kid, who may or may not have been conducting business in the president's name. Yes, the people have a right to know, and to have a press secretary who will actually answer the question. In a rare moment of clarity, Joe Biden, is he making an admission, or is his Alzheimer's catching up with him? You decide.
I was just thanking, anyway, I started off without you. And I sold a lot of state secrets and a lot of very important things that we shared.
Let's try that again.
And I sold a lot of state secrets and...
One more time in slow-mo.
Yeah. And I sold a lot of state secrets and...
One more time in super slow-mo.
Started off without you. And I sold a lot of state secrets and a lot of very important things.
We're going to go one more time as slow as we can, then we're going to bring it back up to 3/4 just to make sure that we caught it.
And I sold a lot of state secrets and...
I mean, I'm no linguistic expert, but that sounds to me like the confession into something that he should not be confessing into. And just because Mogwai's watching, Marjorie Taylor Greene does call to impeach Biden at that point.
And I sold a lot of state secrets and...
Kind of sure sounds to me like he said he sold a lot of state secrets.
Without you. And I sold a lot of state secrets and...
Now, in full reality and realism, do I think that he's actually confessing to a crime here? No. Do I think this is a mumble over of still have a lot of state secrets? Probably. Or again, this may be a rare lucid moment from Biden where he just comes out and says whatever comes off the top of his head. Because he does things like that. All right, what else do we have? From the Associated Press. Switching gears, looking at the Trump side. Was there a shooting? No, but the Democrat that shot up the place pled guilty. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Yeah, we'll add that to tomorrow's stack. We've already got quite the stack going for tomorrow, so. DOJ proposes December trial date for Trump in classified documents case from Eric Tucker. The DOJ has asked a judge on Friday to postpone until December the criminal trial of former President Trump for retaining classified documents. Eileen Cannon earlier this week set an initial trial date of August 14th, which, by the way, there's no way. That is not going to happen. No matter what it is that they do, there's not going to be a trial of Donald Trump on January 14th, or August 14th, rather. January, maybe. Because that will be right in the midst of campaign season. But August 14th, that's not going to happen. Who faces 37 felony counts accusing him of illegally hoarding classified documents and obstructing Justice Department efforts to get them back. Prosecutors with Special Counsel Jack Smith's team asked Cannon to reschedule the trial for December 11th. They said the delay was necessary because the case involves classified information that will require Trump's lawyers to obtain security clearances, a process that is underway. The DOJ said this week that it's begun sharing with the Trump legal team evidence related to the case. But they said in their Friday filing, even with the prompt production of the government has arranged, the inclusion of additional time for defense counsel to review and digest the discovery, to make their own decisions about the production of the government, and for the government to review the same is reasonable and appropriate. And this is the time, by the way, that I wish Massey would just take these documents, because he has access to them, and read them on the House floor. I want to know what's in these documents, because that will be the crux of this case. If the DOJ gets their way, the crux of the case will be whether or not he had the documents to begin with. But for the rest of the general populace and the American public, what is in the documents is going to be the most important. And I do believe Massey knows. I do believe he's read them. And if he's willing to come back out and read them on the House floor, then I don't believe that they are what we've been told that they are. The DOJ said Trump's lawyers do not object to pushing the trial date back. The judge will ultimately set the trial date. And that's all. That's all that they have to say about that. Brief one here from the Post. Special Counsel Jack Smith asked judge to delay start trial by 4 months. Just to give you an idea how long it's going to go. Which, now that they put that out there, it didn't register in my mind that August to December was 4 months. Now this actually does seem a little bit unrealistic. Again, I don't see starting on August 14th as a realistic time frame. But I would put October in the realm of reality. Jack Smith on Friday asked a federal judge to push back the start date of Trump's trial and charges. In a court filing, Smith requested U.S. District Judge Eileen Cannon to delay the trial by nearly 4 months from August 14th to December 11th, arguing that both the prosecution and the defense need more time to prepare. The special counsel noted that the president's defense team does not object to moving the date. Smith argued that the August 14th date would deny counsel for the defendant or the attorney or the government the reasonable time necessary to effectively prepare. Also presenting a challenge is the need for Trump's defense team to obtain the appropriate security clearances to view the evidence Smith has against the former president. The case does involve classified information and will necessitate defense counsel obtaining the requisite security clearances. Smith wrote, noting it may take up to 60 days for the defense team to be cleared to view some of the most sensitive material. He added, the inclusion of additional time for defense counsel to review and digest the discovery, to make their own decisions about any production to the government, and for the government to review the same is reasonable and appropriate. But we have another hearing that will be coming up here in the very near future. This is actually only in a couple weeks. Cannon schedules July 14th hearing on how classified materials will be handled in the Trump documents case from Tierney Sneed and Caitlin Palance. The first hearing for Trump and the special counsel's office before Eileen Cannon in the Mar-a-Lago document case will be in Fort Pierce, Florida on July 14th. The hearing is set to discuss pretrial issues around classification, with Cannon on Monday granting a request from special counsel Smith that she hold the hearing under the Classified Information Procedures Act. Trump is not required to be at the hearing, according to the new court order, though it's the first time the defense teams are set to appear before Cannon. Additionally, Cannon ordered Monday that the defendants respond by July 6th to the special counsel's request that the trial be delayed until December. According to the Friday filing from Smith's team requesting the delay, the defendants' attorneys confirmed that they will not oppose an adjournment of the current trial date and request a status hearing when the court with the court to address the scheduling on this action. As the defense lawyers anticipate filing an opposition to this motion addressing their objections to the government's proposed dates. Cannon previously scheduled the trial to begin in mid-August, but is widely expected the start date would be pushed back. Yeah, there's no way, again, there is absolutely zero way whatsoever that this happens in August. So we have that there. I've got a separate article on this, so we'll go to that. I'd be kind of interested, and again, how the classification goes, how this gets handled, and how people are able to see it, especially for the jury, is interesting. As I pointed out, the majority of our classified documents cases, within living memory for most of us, involve documents that have already been leaked and already become public knowledge, vis-a-vis already declassified, even though they're not technically legally declassified at the time because they've been leaked and they've become common knowledge at the time of the trials. The classification and the jury's ability to see the documents is in an entirely different format than where we are, where we can't even be sure at this point, number one, that there is a classified document. It's a reminder that nobody who is a legal expert on Twitter has ever seen these documents. That's reasonable doubt in and of itself, but that he was actually waving around a classified document saying, look, here's a classified document, I could have declassified this, instead of doing so in jest. There is enough reasonable doubt in this that I would be interested to see what the state's position is without actually physically producing the documents to the jury. And the American public, for that matter. But one of the interesting cruxes of the argument that's going on currently, right now, comes to us from Insider. Eileen Cannon denied the special counsel's request to hide the names of 84 potential witnesses in the Trump classified documents case. From Brent D. Griffiths. Eileen Cannon ruled on Monday that special counsel Jack Smith cannot file under seal the names of 84 potential witnesses who may offer incriminating testimony after former President Trump's handling of classified documents. Cannon, in a brief order, wrote that she was not convinced that the federal prosecutors did not have other means at their disposal to justify shielding the list of potential witnesses from public view. The government's motion does not explain why filing the list with the court is necessary. It does not offer a particularized basis to justify sealing the list from public view. It does not explain why partial sealing, redaction, or means other than sealing are unavailable or unsatisfactory, and it does not specify the duration of any proposed seal, Cannon wrote. That last part is going to be the important crux of this entire thing, which is going to invalidate the 11th Circuit argument that a lot of the legal experts on Twitter are trying to bring up right now. Cannon noted that a bevy of news organizations, including the New York Times, a former newspaper, CNN, the Washington Post, Where Democracy Goes to Die in Darkness, the Wall Street Journal, and Insider, have also opposed keeping the potential witnesses' names private. The news organizations previously wrote to the court that sealing would deprive Americans from learning about a highly significant initial step in this extraordinary prosecution. As part of the conditions of Trump's release, the former president isn't allowed to contact the potential witnesses about the case except through his counsel. The federal government was then instructed to provide a list of names to Trump and the court, setting off the current episode. The former president's own lawyers have strongly indicated that the potential witnesses could include senior officials and people who are still around Trump. Joaquin Noda, who was charged alongside Trump, continues to be the former president's body man and was seen working for him outside the Miami courthouse on the morning of Trump's arraignment. So, and this, by the way, is interesting. There is an argument to be made as far as the witness list goes getting to the American public, which, to keep it sealed from the American public to get to the New York Times and Washington Post and Insider and things like that, there is definitely a case for, and a case to hold the former president in contempt if he runs to Truth Social and starts ripping off the names of people that are on the list. There is a case to be made for that, because while, again, the most radical violence in this country does come from the left, as much as they're going to try to come back out and tell you the otherwise, there are still going to be religious followers of the Donald who take to social media to try to find these people, and some of the more extreme ones who may or may not be egged on by feds, keep that in mind, but some of the more extreme ones might get that brilliant idea coming from someone in a mysterious Discord server that they should go back out and physically hunt down the witnesses. But as far as keeping it under seal away from the attorneys, which Jack Smith is also insisting that he do, is asinine in and of itself. That's a part of discovery. And you knew this coming in, by the way, when you decided to call these witnesses. That in and of itself is a part of discovery. Yes, the lawyers do retain the right to figure out who it is that they're going to be testifying against, do the research on the people that they're going to be questioning on the stand, and what their statement is going to be. That is a part of discovery. How can you possibly prepare for cross if you don't have the ability to see what the witness list is? And the other side of that is, if the Trump team decided, hey, we have a big list of defense witnesses, but we want to keep them away from the prosecution, all the legal experts over on Twitter would be crying foul about that too. He's hiding evidence. He's got intimidation. He's not allowing the state to do their job, which is a ridiculous statement in and of itself, but we'll stay away from that one right now. But realistically, you've got to be in a position where you can take the good with the bad. Yes, if Trump's legal team does get the list of names and testimonies, there is a possibility of leaks, especially to Truth Social. But you just can't deny discovery because of that. And again, this I think would be more appropriate if this was like a Hillary or a Bill Clinton on trial for something. Not that they'll ever be on trial for anything, because yes, then those witnesses will probably disappear. They'll get very depressed for reasons unknown. It's funny how that works. And just to point out, and something that I wanted to talk about with this is, as I said, all the people on Twitter are now suddenly experts in the 11th Circuit, which is, by the way, overseen by Justice Clarence Thomas, who gets final say in all matters before the 11th Circuit. So Hugo Lowell was the first one that reported this. Just in, U.S. Judge Eileen Cannon denies special counsel request to file 84 potential witnesses in the Trump classified docs case under seal, says the government does not explain why it's necessary, and notes media coalition has moved to have it made public, which noted leftoid Andrew Wortman, who is still resisting something, I don't know what, says, the defense didn't object to these witnesses being kept under seal, and the DOJ explained very thoroughly why this is necessary. This makes it clear Judge Cannon cannot preside over this case. It gives the DOJ a completely legitimate reason to have her replaced by the 11th Circuit. Whereas Howard, with the Star of David in his profile, says, 11th Circuit likely. This moron again? Just reverse it like we did all the other rulings. With a lot of people who are going to be very, 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 very disappointed when this one stands up. We'll see. And just a speech from Tulsi Gabbard that I think fits very, very nicely in this particular situation, talking about banana republics. Let's listen.
Tulsi, has justice been served?
Of course not. Of course not. And anybody in America can see that. You know, this is, of course, the two-tiered system of justice that we have, where if you are in the in crowd or you are in the, part of the power elite in Washington, you will be let off the hook for crimes that people are serving time in prison for today if you're an everyday American. Mm-hmm. And this is absolutely a distraction. This allows them to say, hey, look, we did this, we investigated it, all of these other things about bribery and this FBI memo and everything else that requires investigation, they are looking to point at this and say, yeah, no, it's already been dealt with.
Tulsi, has justice been served?
She goes and tweets with this and says, every banana republic or dictatorship has a two-tier justice system. The in-crowd, like Hunter Biden, get a slap on the wrist, while dictators use federal law enforcement and government institutions as their own personal goon squad to go after political opponents. This is the sad state of affairs in America today. Alright, what are we looking at? We're at 1:40. We still got a bunch of time left. Remember, we got to go a little bit later because somebody managed to mute the microphone before we got started. But let's talk about the Fed rally in Oregon over the weekend. Now, caution, there's going to be very coarse language in this one. All right, Adam Kinzinger. I don't know why I put the music back on. There's video for this one too. Adam Kinzinger says, these people, all blue checks, are celebrating seemingly mega assault on federal officers. Now, I don't know what this really is. Well, it seems that you kind of do by the beginning part of this tweet. But take a gander at the comments of the patriots who love America. Well, first let's watch the video and see what happened. This is Roseville nationalists confronting a group of what they claim to be Proud Boys, but I don't see any evidence that these are actually Proud Boys. Let's watch.
Get the fuck out of here! Get the fuck out of here! Back up! Back up! Get out of here! Get the fuck out! No! You too! Hold up! Go! Get the fuck out! Be gone, bitch!
Hold on, I want to see if I can blow this back out because I think this was better view from here. All right, let's see. Or do they? No, it does look like they still cut their heads off.
Get the fuck out! No! You too! Hold up! Go! Get the fuck out! Be gone, bitch! Get your fucking mouth. Come on. Go. You go. Be gone. Go. Go. Fucking racist motherfucker. Casey, you're a faggot, dude. Go. You hit me with a weapon, bro. What's up? You saying all that shit about me on the internet? Fuck out of here, racist. Go. Go! Get the fuck out of here, dude. We're not here. We're here to be here. You know. Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out! Go! Go! Bitches! Go! Go, bitches! Go, bitches! He didn't talk. I'm gonna fuck you up. Fucking time. Bitch, calling everybody.
Get him! Back him off!
Fuck yeah, dog. Bitch. Fuck yeah, dog. Get the fuck out. T-Mask! T-Mask! Yeah! T-Mask! T-Mask! The way you talked about my brother is fucking disgusting. Do not talk to me. T-Mask! T-Mask!
And this guy just struggling quickly to go cover up his face before he gets recognized. Yeah, oh no!
T-Mask! You guys are taking the streets back, T-Mask! You fucking racist piece of shit! Come on, come here! Fuck you, Nazi! Oh, okay, guys, let's go back.
Alright, commentary on this. Now, number one, this video conveniently cuts off before. I've not seen what got this started, who approached who. There has been reporting on this that it was the Roseville nationalists that approached the MAGA crowd, and again, there's also the reporting that the people who were pulling the masks were Pride Boys. I don't know if I believe the second part. I actually cannot say whether or not the first part is true, that the Roseville nationalists were the one that came out and approached to begin with, but this is something that's, like, the left has been screaming about this too, because they want this to be, they want to expose them as real grassroots Trump supporters and make them go lose their jobs or things like that. But if this is something that you don't agree with, that, and these people conveniently always show up, right? As soon as the cameras are rolling on a rally like this, the one guy who's in the mask with his big sunglasses on with a big swastika flag is running out there screaming and sprinting to spread the flag out and get caught on camera doing so. So they can associate the Trump movement with the Nazistic movement. And that's going to be the most important part. Demask these people. Let the world see who they are. If they're going to show up and spread the flag, and the flag that's hateful, pull the mask off of them. The other people are out here supporting their orange deity with no implications, with their face right out. And I suspect, again, that once we start seeing some of these people demasked, number one, these instances are going to start going down really, really quick. But we're going to start to see some facial recognition software work, and some of these faces are going to match FBI IDs. And again, just like I said at the outset of some of these, I don't think that it's all of them. When they do these big rallies and they have the swastikas and the DeSantis flags out there together, I don't think that it's all feds that are doing that. I've made the joke and I've said, hey, if these people are out here doing this, then who's watching the J. Edgar Hoover building? But realistically, in a group of 12, all it would take is 2 to 3, maybe 4 federal agents to push everybody else out there. Say, hey, get on Amazon, go buy this flag. Yeah, don't worry about wrinkling the creases or ironing the creases on it, which I've noticed in a couple of these that happened over the weekend, that the creases have started to be ironed out of some of these things because they start to hear what it is that we're saying about these kinds of things. But it is time to go back and unmask some of these people. If nothing else, just to see who they are.
Get the fuck out of here!
And again, similar uniforms, similar sunglasses, same masks. I do have a sneaking suspicion that these are all coming from one same organization. What's funny about that is I said that it would, in a group of 12, it would take like 2 to 4, whereas we had the group of Michiganders who were all hell bent on they were going to go kidnap that there Gretchen Whitmer. And there sure was 12 of them out there, and wouldn't you know it, 7 of them turned out to be feds. Once they all got unmasked, 7 of them turned out to be feds. From the Daily Mail. Shocking moment. Gang of Proud Boys unmasked rival group of neo-Nazis and beat them with an American flagpole when they tried to join the anti-Pride protest in Oregon. From Laura Parnaby for DailyMail.com. A gang of Pride Boys have clashed with a rival group of masked neo-Nazis who tried to join their anti-Pride protest in Oregon. And see, when I see this guy right here, this is part of the reason that I don't know that these are the Pride Boys. Because don't they, and I will be completely honest, I will admit that I've never seen the Pride Boys. Like, even on the reporting, I typically don't see the videos where they're out there and starting the fights with Antifa or anything else like that. But from what little bit I have seen of them, don't they usually go out in khakis and polo shirts? Because they're trying to raise the standard for Western men is supposedly what their mission statement is or something like that. There's footage from it, which we just saw. One woman involved in the anti-Pride demonstration said that white nationalists walked into our protest and local Pride Boys made it clear that they weren't welcome. Videos of the violence posted online show the members of the Pride Boys group squaring up to a handful of men, wearing black hats, gloves, face masks, and sunglasses to obscure their identities. Pride Boys can be heard shouting, "Get the F out of here," "Be gone, bitch," and "Get the F out, you racist mother effers," while shoving the nationalists away and beating them with American flagpoles. The neo-Nazis slowly backed away down the sidewalk, but some pushback as the exchanges become more heated. A fight breaks out in the middle of the group, with members from both sides shoving each other aggressively into the road while car horns beep and the traffic pauses. Several passers-by film the combat on their phones as some members of the rival group take a tumble and begin grappling on the ground. This fight spills further onto the road, and members of the Pride Boys demand the neo-Nazis be demasked, while a local security official is seen calling for calm. Several of the Rose City Nationalist members lose their masks amid the brawl, and they back away with gloved hands covering their faces as the Pride Boys continue their advance. A video taken from a wider angle shows at least 20 people were involved in the street combat, and a woman can be heard shouting, "Get them out of here." One woman involved in the anti-Pride protest shared images on Twitter of the demonstration before the fight broke out. A handful of women are pictured brandishing signs that reading "Drag is misogyny," and "Children don't belong around sex clowns." Based. Meanwhile, a drag queen dressed in a glittery jumpsuit is shown speaking with a camera further down the sidewalk. The anti-Pride protester wrote on Twitter, "Say what you will about the Pride Boys, but my friends and I certainly appreciated them getting those creepy white nationalists away from us. We were just standing there with our sign, waving at the drivers who were mostly honked, waved, and yelled, and gave thumbs up in support. Only a few flipped us off and yelled insults, when suddenly these dudes in black masks were walking up to us and flying their flyers. So, interesting turn of the events. Alright. We are running up on the clock, but there's not a lot of live chat tonight. So, I'm going to do this last story here. So, CNN reports Montana legislators receive suspicious packages with white powder. From Melissa Alonso. Montana legislators are the latest lawmakers to receive anonymous threatening letters containing white powder amid an FBI investigation into similar incidences across the country, according to state officials. At least 2 Montana legislators have received suspicious packages in the mail containing white powder. At this time, both are fine, and law enforcement is investigating and will be testing the substance, the state Senate GOP said. Governor Gianforte on Friday said he's received disturbing reports that Montana legislators are receiving anonymous threatening letters containing white powder. The state will bring to bear whatever resources are needed to support law enforcement officers as they investigate. On Thursday, oh, by the way, they'll talk about the legislators in Tennessee and their party affiliation, but it does not appear that any of the Montana legislators are named by party. On Thursday, Republican state lawmakers in Tennessee received threatening letters containing a suspicious substance. The letters were sent to GOP lawmakers' offices inside Cordell Hull State Office building on the grounds of the state capitol in Nashville, officials said. The FBI said the letters had an unknown substance. Our friend from Africa has joined us over on the Instagram side. And the local reporting on this as well. Q2, Montana's news leader out of Billings, says the same thing. Billings state reps received 4th suspicious letter. But this one, at least in the first paragraph, does give us a party affiliation. Sue Vinton, the majority leader, a Republican from Billings. Vinton received the letter on Monday. According to an official, she did not open the letter and turned it over to Yellowstone County Sheriff's Office. On Sunday, State House Speaker Matt Rieger received a similar letter addressed to the state capitol address. They do not give party affiliation here, but given the fact that Rieger is State House Speaker in Montana, I mean, you kind of know already. Late last week, the first 2 suspicious letters were received by Neil Durham of Eureka and Rhonda Knudsen of Culbertson at their local addresses. Both Republicans, by the way, and mentioned. But the first one who says something about it in the headline, of course, is Fox News. Montana Republican lawmakers reportedly received suspicious letters with mysterious white powder. Coming to Fox News from the Associated Press. Republican lawmakers in Montana are sharing that they received several letters with white powder as federal agents investigate mysterious substances similarly mailed to GOP officials in 2 other states. In a Friday tweet, Greg Gianforte said he has received disturbing reports of anonymous threats sent to legislators. The Montana AG posted on Facebook that the local sheriff's office collected evidence after his mother, a state rep, opened one letter with a white powder substance sent to her home address. Please be cautious about opening your mail, Montana AG Austin Knudsen said in a post directed towards legislators. If you receive a suspicious package, contact law enforcement immediately. And the Blaze, finishing out our news segment for the night, pointing out that this is happening all across the country to hundreds of GOP lawmakers in states that passed laws unfavorable to the LGBTQIRA, MIGI, XTBYAEIOU activists. Now, why would CNN want to downplay the party affiliation and even the local affiliate? And mind you, it is highly unlikely in any of these situations, again, that this white powder is any sort of harmful substance. It hasn't been thus far, and it likely probably won't be as we go forward. The most likely outcome of what this white powder is, as this is what I said on Friday last week, is that this is either powdered sugar or flour. That is most likely what it is that we're seeing here. Powdered sugar or flour. But just like when we talked about the bomb threats in Target, you have to clear out the target. Well, the one got ballsy and didn't, but you have to clear out the target. You have to. Even if 99.999% of the time there's no bomb, that 0.0001% that there is one is going to put a lot of lives on your conscience. 99.99999% of the time that these letters are getting sent out to government officials, and this goes all the way back to Bush, by the way, they're harmless. It's powdered sugar or flour. When they went to Don Jr., when they went to Bush, when they went to lawmakers in Congress under the Bush admin, when they went to cabinet officials in the Trump admin, and when they went out here now. 99.999% of the time, it's simple table powdered sugar. But who wants to be the one that's wrong when it turns out to be anthrax? This is terrorism. And who might be sending letters exclusively to Republican lawmakers for terroristic purposes other than progressive Democrats? And by the way, this would go the other way in my mind too. If all of a sudden a bunch of Democrat lawmakers, especially, well, now I might think feds, just to try to pull the tail off of it. Kind of like with the pipe bombs that mysteriously went to the headquarters of both parties during the January 6th Selfie Fest. The pipe bomb that had no charge in it whatsoever, by the way. If this started going the other direction, I might start to say feds. But if we were in a complete vacuum situation, where Democrats were in power in a number of states and starting to pass laws that were guiding us towards communism, and a bunch of them started getting letters with mysterious white powder in them, I would look up and say, yeah, it's probably Republicans that are doing this. Most likely. Or feds. Let's see, hundreds of suspicious packages containing white powder and threatening notes have been sent to GOP lawmakers in 3 states where Republicans have recently passed legislation unpopular with fringe LGBTQIRA, MIGI, XTBYAEIOU activists, such as laws protecting children from same-sex change mutilations and puberty blockers. The latest was addressed to Montana House Speaker Matt Regier, bearing exterior postmarkings that follow the pattern of the other letters. Oh, by the way, these are all coming from a central area too, by the way. It appears that not only has the same stamp been used on a number of instances, but the names of slain or prominent transvestites have repeatedly inscribed in the letters, reported the Wichita Eagle. The KBI noted that as of around June 18th, around 100 letters have been received by Republican lawmakers Preliminary tests have returned from the lab indicating that the substance is presumptively negative for common biological agents of concern. Further and more complete testing will be conducted on the sample. It's flour. If your preliminary test comes back negative, it's flour. Our focus remains on ensuring the safety of Kansans and holding those responsible for the crimes accountable, said KBI Director Tony Mattivi. 17 hazmat teams and 12 bomb squads initially responded upon the receipt of the threatening letters. Over 60 special agents, forensic scientists, and other specialists have been tasked with collecting or screening the evidence. Tennessee, on June 22nd, threatening letters containing white powder sent to Republican lawmakers in Tennessee prompted a temporary lockdown at the 6th floor of the Cordell Hall building, a legislative office building connected to the state capital of Nashville, reported the Associated Press. Firefighters with the Nashville Fire Department were among those who responded to test the substance. House Republican Caucus spokeswoman Jennifer Easton said the letters contained obvious threats made by liberal activists specifically targeting Republicans. In Montana, Gianforte noted Friday that Montana legislators are receiving anonymous threatening letters containing white powder. And here we can see another one of the letters from our addressed to Ronna Knutson and Neil Durham. Same font, by the way. Salutations. To honor your recent accomplishments, I send you a gift from the exclusive Astruk Baruch collection. It is important not to choke on your own ambition. Your secret despiser. And then again, written in several different languages. And then again, you wonder why the party is downplayed. The only mention of the GOP for Montana is that the Senate GOP tweeted out a cautionary to all members of Congress in that state. So that is what we have for that. Let's just have a check-in on what you guys are saying over here, which I think is just Mogwai today, which means we need to get some more people in here, get this advertised out a bit more. On the Instagram side, we have Foundation for Building an African, which is an African charity that comes and checks us out from time to time. Thank you. On the Rumble side, we are empty. On the Kick side, we're empty, with the exception of me making a chat check over there. So we'll see if we can't grow that channel out here a little bit here. Over on the main side, Mogwai, crashing more than the Ocean Gate stock prices. Is there even a stock left for Ocean Gate? Let's be realistic. So this is Spectrum's internet quality? Apparently. And it's at the same time every day. That's the weirdest part. I don't know if you guys can chat back in to the Kick side, by the way. Because I looked at the chat over here and realized that nothing translated back over. So I think, because I know that you can chat check out, because I can chat in here and it'll pop up in the main chat. And then yes, however, for whatever reason, when I switched over the scenes, the microphone muted back out again. I don't know what happened there. Mogwai says, I love Mondays. Will the stream work or not? It's not just been Monday, it's been random. Marjorie Taylor Greene is the drawer of impeachment. Petrick Farm will know. Rachel Maddow hates me? Yes. Yes, Rachel Maddow hates you. Oh, I saw under $3 in South Carolina. Belarus Starbucks in a week. Yes, I have radioactive Frappuccino for Prigozhin. I mean, it's totally safe coffee for Commodore Prigozhin. And then when they went back and turned around, Check didn't clear. Call him back. Yeah, apparently we didn't have enough money in the check for Prigozhin to go back and try to take out Putin, so he had to go back and call him back. Mogwai says, there was a better chance of Lindsey Graham sliding out of the closet on a rainbow slide than Hunter serving time. I have that image in my mind now. And now I want to see that. I trust Ted Kennedy in an Uber before I trust Harris if I was one chest pain away. Apparently, with the anti-pride rally, Mogwai thinks it's a Nazi rally, and somebody took his job. And that's all that we have for the night. Kind of looking forward to winter here, actually. Just see if we can rally some more people in here. But we are done. We're out of here. It's good. I need to go get something to eat. A little bit of dance music at the end here, but that's not what we're going to go out of here on. Sort of an upbeat version of the Mining Melancholy from Donkey Kong Country 2. Which is kind of an oxymoronic by itself. An upbeat version of a song that's called Melancholy. I don't know. Let's head out of here for the night. So, with that, we are done. We're out of here for the night. Thanks everybody who came by and hung out, chatted in the live chat. If you are watching this on the replay over on Instagram, remember, you can't see the video that the rest of us are watching over here. You probably noticed that earlier on in the stream. So, hit that link in the description. It'll bring you right to the YouTube channel where you can see the replays of all these videos. Or you can check us out on Spotify, Contemporary with J. Edgar. Go check us out over there. As for you on the rest of the platforms as well, you can check us out. YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey still, or Spotify. You can go check us out on all those platforms. Check us out, take us on the go. All the downloads help, by the way, so thank you guys for that. We will be back here tomorrow for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. Take care. Have a good night. Hug your family. Get some dinner. And we will see you here then. Until then, I'm J. Edgar. Who are we going to raid tonight, by the way? Go find somebody for that over on our Twitch side. Who's playing what? Skittles is playing Twilight Princess Wii U version. Otherwise, there's a New Vegas out there. A Fallout 4. Let's do the New Vegas one, I think. Let's go check out that one. Otherwise, yeah, come back and join me here tomorrow. Take care. Have a good night. See you next time. Until then, I am J. Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.